The Toyota Prius is fuel efficient, aerodynamic, well-built, and high-tech. The 2001 Mercedes ML55 AMG is none of those. It has an engine that's twice the size of the one in the Prius, but it gets a quarter of the gas mileage. Its interior quality is worse than a 90s Kia, and it's shaped like an armadillo. So you may be wondering why I chose to replace my Toyota Prius with one of these monstrosities. Now, for all you Prius fans on my channel, you can rest assured knowing that this was not a planned replacement. Sadly, after over 20 years of dedicated service, my 2004 Prius was totaled in a low-speed car accident. Now, don't worry, everyone was okay, and thankfully I can attest that I was not the driver involved in this collision. However, they will remain nameless for privacy's sake. I tried my best to save the Prius, but without even looking at the car, insurance claimed it a total loss. Still, I took it to a local body shop where they said there was over $8,000 in damage and likely more once they started digging. So it just didn't make sense to put all that money into the old Prius, because once fixed, it would be driven under a salvage title, which means I couldn't get full coverage insurance on it, and also it was already in pretty rough cosmetic shape. So that left the decision and the opportunity to replace the Prius looming over my head. Now, by this point, I decided it was time for something different. You see, there are two things the AMG does that the Prius doesn't. Number one, it's fast, and number two, it's special. Being that there are only about 4,000 of these sold in the US during its entire production run, I could be sure that I am the only person driving one of these at any given time, and it just feels cool to be behind the wheel of something so rare. Also, I just found myself getting that V8 itch again. I've owned numerous four-cylinder cars over the past couple of years, and while they certainly have their place in my heart, there is never a replacement for displacement. And this one certainly fills that void. And to be quite frank, I honestly just love the way these earlier MLs look and drive. So when I saw one of the coveted AMG models pop up on Facebook Marketplace nearby, I simply couldn't resist. Now it's time to show you all around the ML and show you what makes it so special. So I thought the perfect place to begin was here on the interior, where I'm sure the Benz earned its title as the Alabama trash can. Once inside, you'll find that interior quality is absolutely terrible. The plastics in here are among the most brittle and crappy materials that I've ever seen in any car. This means that by this point, most of them are broken or will be broken in the near future. This is unacceptable for any car, let alone a car bearing the coveted three-pointed star. And it's simply mind-boggling to me that a car that's stickered for $120,000 in today's money could be equipped with such crappy materials. On a more positive note, the things that you touch on a daily basis, like the door panel, steering wheel, and shifter, all seem to be of relatively high quality and feel nice in the hand. But some of the smaller stuff, like the cup holders, the glove box, the mirror thing here, are just so crappy, and I honestly wonder how long after people drove these cars off the showroom did these smaller parts start to break. And that could have been quite the kick in the balls after spending that much money on a beautiful SUV. Now that we're back on the exterior of the ML, it's time to talk about styling. And to put it quite simply, there are some really good angles on this car and some less than ideal angles on it. But honestly, compared to most SUVs these days, especially Mercedes models, I think this is a pretty damn good looking SUV, and it's certainly helped by the AMG body kit and wheels, which give it a bolder, more aggressive stance out here on the exterior. And you know, some people may find it quite awkward looking, but maybe that's why I kind of like it. Out here on the exterior, you'll also notice some of the same cost-cutting measures we saw on the interior, which include the usage of cheap plastic and poor build quality. It seems like every time I go to open the hood, a different piece of chrome will fall off the grille, which is also an incredibly flimsy piece of plastic. And you'll notice that the Mercedes-Benz logo is also missing here, although luckily I have that stored safely in the interior, where it hopefully won't fall out of a broken plastic panel. Now, once you'll open the hood, which is done via this cool latch that's hidden within the Mercedes logo, you'll find what is undoubtedly the crown jewel of this vehicle, which is the hand-built 5.4-liter AMG tuned V8, which is paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission, making 345 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. Those are healthy numbers for a big SUV, and certainly one from 23 years ago. And let me tell you, this thing gets up and goes. So now I've shown you around the ML and shown you why I love it so much. And although there's plenty of trash that can be kicked around about the interior quality on this vehicle, it's worth noting that with over 180,000 miles on the odometer, the powertrain here is pretty bulletproof. And another unique upside to the simpler, less complex build quality, let's call it, of this car is it makes working on it very easy. See, to install that hitch you may have seen in the back required the removal of 4 bolts holding on the bumper. 4 bolts. Took it off and installed the hitch within 30 minutes, so pretty simple there. Now, while the bumper may be flimsily installed, it made that job pretty easy. The other day, the AC broke. No big deal there because the knob just came detached from a cable connected to the blend door. All I had to do was remove the glove box with just a few screws and press on the lever with a large rod to temporarily fix that. An oil change on this thing is like any other vehicle, except the filter is mounted right up here, so it makes doing the job a lot less messy. It's nice to see that a Mercedes of this vintage is so easy to work on compared to today's products, which have enough technology on them to land the Mars rover. So now that you know why I purchased the ML55, it's time to get it out there and put it through its paces and find out if this can will haul the trash. Alright, so we are driving the Mercedes ML55 AMG. And yeah, there is a lot that can be said about the interior quality of this vehicle not being the best, and it certainly lives up to that. But the driving experience is what matters, and in this car, it is awesome. The powertrain, number one, it's fairly reliable. It's a pretty solid platform. It's got 180,000 miles, original transmission. It all runs and drives great. No rattles coming from the suspension or anything. So it seems like this vehicle has held up really, really well over time in terms of the drivetrain. And then just in terms of the overall driving experience, I mean, one thing you have to keep in mind, especially with these older SUVs, is this is a truck. It's a body-on-frame vehicle. It drives like a truck. The other vehicles that come to mind that drive in a similar way that this one does is like a Land Rover Discovery or something like that, or like a Lexus GX. Just, it's a truck. But the difference here is this powertrain is extremely athletic. The car feels genuinely fast, especially off the line. It's got tons of torque. And it's just so much fun to drive around town and kind of race people off stoplights with. And another thing that's super awesome about this car is the highway cruising. It is incredibly smooth on the highway. It's one of the only cars I've ever driven that has absolutely no shake in the steering wheel. Now, of course, every car is supposed to be perfect and, you know, balanced and aligned to whatever. But no matter what, you know, Hondas, Toyotas, Volvos, Saabs, whatever, they'll always have some shake, I find, that is very hard to get rid of. This car, without doing any alignment work to it and just driving it off from where I bought it, the first thing I noticed is, man, this thing is so stable on the highway. And it's got incredible passing power once you're up to speed. So with maybe some turbo cars or forced induction, smaller displacement engines, sure, you've got good off-the-line power, but the passing power simply is not there. That's not the case with this car. At any time you put your foot into it, it downshifts and it fucking hauls ass. And I find it very useful for getting around slow drivers, passing people on the highway. It's just a super fun car to drive. I just love the way it feels so solid. The steering wheel is incredibly nice. This is one of my favorite steering wheels this generation of Mercedes. I just think it's a super opulent looking steering wheel, especially with the wood accents. It really brings this interior up a notch, in my opinion. But yeah, it just, the steering is heavy, and it really just feels like it drives like a tank. It drives like a truck, basically, but like a luxurious truck. And the interior, although the plastics aren't great, the seats are super comfortable, they feel well built, power adjustments there, and it's just super quiet. There's no wind noise, no road noise. It's much more refined than I was expecting. I was expecting, since this vehicle is the same age as me, almost 23 years old, I expected it to feel less refined on the road, but that's definitely not the case. This car is quiet. It feels like the chassis has been well engineered and well tuned. It's not going to drive like, it's not going to try and mimic a sports car like the newer AMG SUVs might, but it just drives exactly kind of how I would want it to drive. Like, you know, it's just this weird vehicle because you're buying like a sports car engine with a truck platform, so it's just like this funky mix of, like, you know, the acceleration is fast, but you feel like you're driving a pickup truck or something. So I really like that, and the sound system's really good in here. Another thing that I really like on this car are the gauge clusters. These are just super cool looking gauge clusters. They have aged incredibly well. They don't look dated at all. I especially like driving at night with the orange backlight. I think that gives it a really cool look. And I mean, it's got cruise control, the turn signals, windshield wiper stalks are all super nice. Of course, the windshield tank has a leak in it and the pump doesn't work. So there's a bunch of these little things that are going to continue coming up with this car. But overall, I think the powertrain is pretty solid, and that's kind of been reinforced by like what I've heard online and from the previous owner. But I kind of knew that this car was going to be pretty solid when I pulled up and I saw that he had 5 other Mercedes AMG cars. So I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's got a good taste in cars here. So I think there's 2 main courses of action you can take with buying a used car. Either you want low miles because you know that people probably don't maintain their car, or if you come across an AMG with super high miles like this one, 180,000 miles, you know it must have been well taken care of and well maintained to get all the way there, and that probably everything that's broken or all the major services have been done to get it to that point. And this thing drives absolutely flawlessly, aside from like a minor exhaust leak that I'm gonna get fixed. It runs and drives like new, and I'm just absolutely loving the experience of owning this car so far. We'll see if anything comes up in the future, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's it for me. Take care.